Hello and welcome to the GPC Productions channel. This is episode 28. In this video I will be replacing the capacitors in a Sony SL-HF400 power supply. The interesting thing that's happening right now is whenever I turn on the television and the backlight turns on, the VCR will start to reset. And it'll continuously reset until I turn the TV back off or turn off the backlight. So what I get from this is that the TV, at least the backlight, is causing some kind of electrical noise, and that is causing this VCR to go haywire. So let's get inside and replace the filter capacitors. In fact, let's recap the whole power supply. Now, I'm not exactly sure how old this VCR is, but I would say it's probably about 35 years old, so it's due for capacitors. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to turn it around, and we're going to remove the power supply right here. I've got a couple connectors here to undo. And there's a couple screws way down in there that I'm going to do off camera. All the screws are out, and this should lift right out. And I'll set the VCR aside. Now there's a few more screws to take out just to get this ready for new capacitors. Looks like I have to unbolt the transformer from the frame too. And there we go. I'm replacing all the electrolytic capacitors. The key things to look for when you're replacing capacitors is capacitance, voltage, and temperature. It's also good to find a brand name that you like. All the capacitors that are in here are Rubicon, which are high quality caps, and I'm replacing them with Nichicon, which is also high quality capacitors. I ordered all these capacitors from DigiKey. I'm not going to show you the desoldering and soldering every single one of them, but I'll show you this big one here and a couple others. Now it's off to the workshop and heat up the soldering iron. I'm set up here in the workshop. Now we just are going to start with the big one here. First thing I'm going to do is turn on the soldering station. Fortunately, this is all leaded solder, so I don't have to run it really hot. One of the key things to watch for while you're putting these in is make sure you get the polarity right. Here's the new capacitor. It looks very similar. Like I was saying before, the key to watch for is polarity. Most of these caps have a stripe that indicates negative. So when I put this new capacitor in, I just need to make sure it's in the same direction. So I'm going to start by adding a little bit of fresh solder. And now I should be able to kind of wiggle this thing out of here by alternately reheating the pads. Maybe I will use the desoldering iron. I gotta switch my vacuum hoses, and I will come back once everything is up to temperature. Now that it's warmed up, I'm just gonna do a little bit of solder sucking. With the pads cleaned off, it should pull right out like that. Now I'll put the new one in. And I'll just get some solder. I'm going to use some of the bigger diameter solder because these pads are kind of large. The board is also nicely marked to show you the polarity of everything. And that one's finished. Now let's go on to this other board and do one of these other ones. Then I'll probably do the rest of them off camera, and then I'll come back when I'm ready to put it back in. Let's do this one right here. We'll start by adding a little bit of fresh solder. Now we'll use the desoldering iron to clear the pads off. And out it comes, just like that. Now I have to go through my package of parts and find the right one. I will be back in a moment. I found the one I'm replacing it with. Now this is interesting. This is the original capacitor. This is a new capacitor. It's kind of interesting how much smaller the new capacitor is. Voltage, capacitance, and temperature are all the same. It's very interesting how much smaller the new one is. Now we'll just put this in. We line up the stripe with the little marking for negative. And I'll bend the leads a little bit so it won't fall out. Turn it over. And then we'll solder it in. And trim the leads. And that's all there is to it. Now I've got the rest of them to do. Here's a capacitor that came in one of these little cards, and I recommend not pulling it out of there. I recommend cutting the leads like this, and then you don't have to worry about adhesive that's going to interfere with the connection. So all the capacitors are in now. I just have to figure out how to put this back together and hope I can get the VCR back together. Plug it in and hope it doesn't go bang. Looks like I just slide this board back into the frame. And I believe there's a screw that goes in here. Oh, I got another problem right here. Looks like a wire broke off. I better go fix that. Okay, all fixed. We'll just get the circuit board on, put a couple screws in. I'll do the transformer screws off camera. Now the power supply is all assembled. I just need to lower it back into the VCR. Well, it fits. That's a good start. Now the power supply's in, I just have to hook up these wires and hope I get them in the right places. Now with everything hooked up and secured down, I just gotta get some power over here and let's hope it doesn't go bang. Well, it's plugged in and I don't see any of the magic smoke. On and off, and appears everything's working. While I have it apart, let's pop a tape in and make sure all the mechanical stuff works. Here's the tape we're going to put in. Press play. Fast forward. Rewind. And eject. Now I'm going to clean the heads. A little bit of rubbing alcohol. Don't drink this. And some cotton swabs. I'm going to go in and clean all the metal that the tape will be in contact with. The heads, the pins, anything like that. I will not put any of this alcohol on any plastic or rubber. Video heads are a little bit different. I'm just going to lightly hold this in the slot and rotate the heads around until they're clean. Overall, the heads weren't too dirty. There was just a little bit of dirt on there. Don't forget to subscribe for more, mash that like button, and comment below. Until next time, this is Uncle D from GBC Productions, signing off.